10 top tips to achieve best grade in your GCSE chemistry exam. Tip number 1, note the number of marks available. So if the question worth 4 marks, then 4 distinct points will be needed. If it's only 1 mark, then most probably only one word or one sentence will be sufficient. So if they ask you to describe what you can notice in a graph, if it's only 1 mark, then only one observation will be needed. But if it's 2 marks, then 2 distinct observations are needed. For example, you can say that the change in y was directly proportional to the change in x until point Z, then the change slowed down or flattened after that point. This is an example from a past exam paper, and they tell you that the information about two fractions obtained from crude oil, the kerosene and heavy fuel oil, and the student predicted that heavy fuel is more viscous than kerosene. The student prediction was correct, and they ask you to justify the student's prediction. This is 2 mark question. That means you need to make 2 observations or you need 2 distinct points. So the 2 distinct points, you cannot just say that increasing the number of carbon atom or the size of the alkane, that means there is an increase in the viscosity because it's 1 point or 1 mark. Then the second point has to be that the heavy fuel oil has larger number of carbon atom or it's larger molecules than kerosene. Tip number 2, note the command word. So first of all, if they ask you to compare, then you need to describe similarities and difference. This is a past exam question as well, where they have the years and the changes, the percentage changes of different gases, and they ask you to compare the changes and the percentage of gases in the region labeled C. This is for carbon dioxide and oxygen. So you have to make 2 observations as well because of the 2 marks. And these 2 observations, one of them has to be similarity and the other one has to be a difference. So the difference is that the carbon dioxide decreased, the oxygen increased, and then this is the difference. The similarity will be that both of these changes will be at the same rate. If they say describe, then you only need to say what happens. If they say explain, then you need to say why this happens. For example, a graph of boiling point of alkanes against the number of carbon atoms in the chain. If they ask you to describe the trend, then you just say that boiling point increases with the increase in the carbon atom. But if they ask you to explain the trend, then it's you need to talk about intermolecular forces of attraction between the molecule and the increase in this forces of attraction, and this is why we would need more energy to break the bonds, and this is why they have higher boiling point. Tip number 3, show your working. If there is a math question, always show your working. You can get some marks even if your final answer is incorrect or even if you are not sure how to get to the final answer. So any working you're gonna do, you're gonna get some mark for that working. Tip number 4, use bullet points in your answer to reduce the amount you have to write. So don't write like a storyteller. Tip number 5, for multiple choice question, if you don't know the answer, try eliminating options by annotating. This will reduce the options you have to choose from, even if you don't know the answer. So don't ever leave multiple choice questions blank. Tip number 6, use precise terminology so your answer shows the whole picture. So if they ask you about hydrocarbons and you say that hydrocarbons contain carbon and hydrogen and you stop here, this is a wrong answer. You have to say that hydrocarbon contain carbon and hydrogen only. So this is the right answer. Tip number 7, when writing displayed formula for organic compounds, make sure to show all the bonds in the compound. So if they ask you to draw something like ethanoic acid, don't draw it like this. This is wrong because you're not showing the bonds here for the carboxylic acid group. Instead, show it this way or draw it this way where all the bonds has been shown. Tip number 8, lines of best fit can be straight or curved. So this is an example of a good fit for line of best fit where it's a curved line, and this is a bad fit for the same data set because this is not a straight line. Tip 9, use capital letters when appropriate. So only the first letter of an element is capital. So if you write magnesium oxide in this way, if this is wrong, you have to write it that way where the M in magnesium is in capital. Tip number 10, don't panic if you see new structure, especially in the organic chemistry section. Mm, If you see a new structure you've never seen before, you don't need to panic. Just look at the functional group and then apply the principle you've learned. So this was a past exam question, past paper exam question, where they give you a cyclic alkene structure like this one, and they ask you to draw the product when it reacts with chlorine. You just need to look at the functional group here, which is the double bond. So the double bond will break and the two chlorine will be added. So simply look at the function group, apply the principle, ignore whatever the structure is because you don't need to know all the structures, you just need